Welcome to ZKast, everyone. I'm ZS Caravella from ZK Research, and I'm here for another ZKast, and I've got a great guest today. I've got Drew Crisp. You're the SVP of Digital for Liverpool Football Club. Drew, I'm delighted to have you. I love covering sports and technology and the intersection of the two. Before we get going, just a quick intro on yourself. And for those who may not know who Liverpool Football Club is, which is hard to believe, maybe an introduction to them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Zayas, thank you for having me. It's good to chat and great topics to talk about. So, Drew Crisp, you've just introduced me, so I probably don't need to say it again. I run the digital business here at Liverpool Football Club. Liverpool Football Club are one of the biggest global brands in football, probably in amongst the top 4 global brands in football, and enjoy playing Premier League football, Champions League football, as well as 2 cup competitions that run here in the UK. My responsibility, what does digital mean? Many different things to many people normally, but my responsibility lies with our media business. So that's all of the content that we create and the content that we push across social, all of the 15 social channels and 186 million followers we've now got. Alongside all of the content that goes across our own TV platform. I'm also responsible for our club marketing function. So they look after what it says on the tin, as well as all of our partner campaigns, run our insight and operations and all of the design teams that sit within that. And then the third pillar is all of what we call product and technology. So the teams that maintain our fan-facing products, as well as all of the infrastructure, and hence why we're talking today, and what keeps lights on across all of our properties. So yeah, that's my remit.
Yeah, it's a fascinating job that you have, because digital at a stadium means so many different things, right? There's so many touch points for a customer. Now, I did notice recently there was a press release from Extreme that said you completed the deployment of a new cloud-managed high-speed Wi-Fi network from Extreme Networks. Before we get into the specifics of that, though, talk about what's been going on with the business, where Liverpool Football Club decided to prioritize a network upgrade, and what you think that actually means for the visitor experience.
Yeah, I think it was probably less about prioritizing a network upgrade and more about thinking we have hundreds of thousands of fans that visit the stadium every single week, of almost every week of every year. And how do we connect with them? And how do we give them a better service? And how do we recognize that there's a big industry shift to the second screen experience, even when you're at live games? And if we look at ourselves, as a club and all of the different parts that make up our club, whereas 50 years ago, people would go and watch a football match. It was just to go and watch a football match. They'd go to the terraces and go home. We now have people flying in from all over the world. We sell museum and tour visits at the stadium. We even do an abseil off the stadium. We've got the biggest retail store that we have, and our own retail property at Anfield, as well as being in the city of Liverpool. Liverpool as a city and as a destination continues to grow. And our fan base, grows very much with it. Hence the comment earlier about 186 million. And for us, yes, there's 61,000 people that can go to every game, but we have millions of people watch it around the world. So if we create a better connected infrastructure at the stadium, how does that not only support and provide services for those that are fortunate enough to go to a game, but can we leverage it to actually create engagements with fans around the world? And so really it was, how do we solve that challenge of connecting with fans? And there's many parts that make up that challenge, but this was one of them. And that's why we wanted we've never ever had Wi-Fi in the bowl, right? Believe it or not, it's not really a common thing in UK stadium. We had some Wi-Fi in hospitality areas, and that was pretty much it. So this is less of an upgrade and more of a mass change.
I didn't realize that there was no connectivity in the dome. Now, I recently ran a survey across the US and Europe that we asked the question, how important is the network to business operations compared to 2 years ago? 93% of the respondents said significantly more important and more important. And I imagine for you and your job, trying to create different ways of engagement, you're seeing the same trend as well. To the network, how critical is the network today to the things that you're trying to do?
Well, it's essential because and actually now it's essential from multiple angles, because if we want to provide promotions, upsell food and beverage, create great hospitality experiences that we can be present in the eyes of the fans, we need them on, a consistent network, because frankly, it makes it easier to connect to them. But there's also then the health and safety angle. So, all of these stadiums are becoming, they're becoming entertainment destinations. And so that means that we have a responsibility for safety, something that we naturally take incredibly seriously. So it's important that we start to think about footfall. We start to think about where are the queues. We start to think about, where are people congregating? We start to think about, is that a challenge? So, from a safety angle, it's really important. And then I think, the third point really then is, well, how do we take some of the experiences that we can now provide in a stadium and actually start to share some of these things more globally? So it kind of is essential from every perspective.
Yeah, one of the interesting challenges I imagine you had, and I want to dive into this a little bit, is a lot of the new stadiums that are built, they're built with network connectivity in mind. Yeah. I know according to Google, it says that the Anfield Stadium was built 140 years ago in 1884. I don't think when they were building the stadium, Wi-Fi was part of the mindset back then, right? So talk about some of the unique challenges of trying to put a modernized network, Wi-Fi network into an iconic old stadium like Anfield.
It's actually, interestingly, we thought that we'd take it one step further and make it even harder. So what we thought we'd do is we'd create a brand new network in a 140-year-old stadium. But by the way, at the same time, we'd extend one end of the stadium and try and put and integrate Wi-Fi at the same time as this enormous construction. So we thought, why not make it harder for ourselves? Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, concrete and steel monsters, ultimately act like a Faraday cage and make it very difficult. And so the amount of work up front that had to be done to look at the sizing, to look at how many access points we need, to look at what's the best place to hang those access points. There's actually then a commercial element to that, because what you don't want is access points getting in the way of someone's view of the pitch, or indeed of partner branding that happens around the pitch. So we have to consider all of those aspects. And then there's the aspect of, well, how do you cable this up? Because, we're not starting to chisel out, into concrete to actually bury the cables. So actually, is there a way in which we can run cables through the roof? Can we run cables around the pitch edge? If you run cables around the pitch edge, you've obviously got some health and safety considerations. And then the other consideration we had is, a lot of modern stadiums manage to put access points under seats or, in certain parts of the gantries around the stadium.
Or handrails.
Yeah. Stadiums are old. You physically can't do that. And you physically can't do that for health and safety sizing reasons as much as you wouldn't be able to put the seat down. So all of those things made it a massive challenge for the teams working on it.
Yeah. And so how'd you get around that? So did you, what was that like? It must have been a very customized type of deployment.
Yeah. I suppose I'm not an expert to determine whether it's a very customized deployment. But the only way we could get around that was to make sure that we had access points up in the roofs at very, very frequent intervals so that we can support the capacity. It was then making sure that every access point in the hospitality area, was again at sufficient intervals for the volume. And then it was about making sure that we've got the switch networks and all of the cabling that need to sit beneath all of that, within the facilities of the stadium, and where necessary, route cables in a creative but safe way. And it's as hard and as simple as that, really.
Yeah. Now, there's the fan-facing side of Wi-Fi that we talked about to allow, your fans to do different things. But a lot of the sports CIOs I've talked to are excited about Wi-Fi from an operational perspective by using the network analytics that
Yeah.
you get from, from Wi-Fi. And so, have you been looking at that? What are the kind of things you're thinking of using them for?
It interestingly, I think that what it's highlighted is we've got that capability. Operationally, how do we use it and how do we make sure we make the best use of it? And I think it would be probably fair to say that we're in our infancy there. But certainly when we talk to the stadium operations team and the safety team, like giving them and equipping them with all of the different dashboards that we have, which, as I said earlier, look at footfall and look at volumes of traffic and look where people are going. All of those things are kind of in the plans to equip them with that insight. We also, again, operationally, less from a safety perspective and more from a usage perspective, we're starting to use it to understand what people are doing during concerts or games, whatever's going on at the stadium. And so that gives us a sense from also from a cybersecurity point of view, as well as an availability point of view, what are people actually wanting to use the Wi-Fi for and what are they doing with it? And that helps us make sure that we've got the right network protection and things.
Yeah, and so from a fan perspective, there's many digital technologies that have entered the arena of sports, different touchless technologies, cashless payments, facial. Now that you've got this upgraded network, what are some of the things that you've done or are thinking of doing?
Yeah, I think we're in the thinking of doing mode. It would, right now. Now we've got this, the sort of way I've described it is we've kind of built ourselves the platform. We've built ourselves a really, really strong foundation. Question is like, what do we want to put on it? And first, and we have looked at things like, the sort of just walk out technologies that you can do in stadiums now when it comes to food and beverage. And, we don't have to be, it's technology now that you can put in the ceilings that monitor where people are going and just, once they've taken their drinks or their pasty or whatever from the counter, it just charges them straight away. So we're looking at that sort of thing for sure, because I think, that helps with traffic and queues and the inherent danger of masses of people collecting in one place. We've got a fan zone in one of the stands, which is enormous. So we're looking at how do we create some more visual immersive media, AR, VR experiences within that zone so that people can go there before a match and really kind of immerse themselves in the world of Liverpool Football Club in different sorts of ways. We are naturally looking at, this sort of sense of the concierge when you're there. One of my dreams would be how do we pack it up, like the experience of having 61,500 people singing in the stadium, with all of the flags. How do we package that up and create an immersive experience of that for our fans around the world, whether they've got a watch party in a pub or whatever it might look like? So yeah, there's lots of things that we're looking at, lots of things that we can now do. How much, how fast, how quickly are always the next debates.
Yeah, a lot of the touchless technology is pretty fascinating in that it allows an entirely different experience. So you think of the traditional fan experience where you never want to go to the bathroom or go buy food because you'll miss something.
Yeah.
But now you can be gone and back at your seat in a matter of seconds, and so that's pretty exciting now as a different way of
very clever. And I think that merge of like motion technology with kind of secure transactions with this sort of ability to use a visual representation and use that to understand what people have bought, taken, got. Yes, very, very clever, very powerful.
Now I know that the deployment was with Extreme, and Extreme's got a long history in sports venues, NFL, Major League Baseball. They've got a lot of, a few premier teams now. Talk about the relationship with them and what was the experience like working with them in this deployment?
Yeah, I talked to them about this actually not long ago, and they asked a similar question. And they asked a question, what what was the number one experience or the number one, thing that, Extreme did. I think, look, as I said earlier, it's not an easy piece of work. I think, this misnomer of Wi-Fi, you just plug in a router, don't you? Because that's what we do in our homes. Like
Yeah.
it's the other end of the spectrum, you sort of, you're comparing building a shed with building a high rise, it's just completely different. And what comes with that is a need to be flexible, is a need to be open and transparent, is a need to work together because many parties are involved in that. And, that was very much necessary here because we also added this complication of trying to, rebuild a stand at the same time as deploying Wi-Fi. So I think, Extreme networks were very flexible, were very open. They listened to what we needed. We listened to where they had challenges. We had to work together with different construction vendors so that they could get, the right kit and equipment to get into the roofs. So it was just it was absolutely a project based on like good, solid working relationships, understanding each other, empathizing towards different challenges and being flexible. And they certainly were. So that, of course, they've got huge amounts of subject expertise.
Yeah.
But, like many others, there'll be other people out there with other subject expertise. I think the difference really is how we work together to make these complex projects work.
Yeah, I think the other thing about Extreme too is they've got subject matter expertise in the kind of difficult to deploy venues, right? The Lambeau Field and Ellen Memorial and some of those Dodger Stadium, Fenway Park, Wrigley, they're all Extreme deployments, and those sometimes are, well, they're obviously much harder than the newer stadiums. So
yeah,
now,
we needed that expertise. Don't get me wrong, because you're right. I mean, Fenway Park as a stadium is very analogous to Anfield in that sense, and we needed a level of expertise to, help us think through those challenges.
Yeah. Now that you have this foundation in place, if you're to put your vision hat on, if I come to Anfield, say 3 years, 5 years from now, what's the vision of what you want to accomplish? What do you want that fan experience to be like?
I sometimes wish I had a crystal ball because don't we all?
It'll be something AI based. We know that, right?
And the challenge with some of this technology is like it moves so fast, it's hard to deploy something and yet keep up. But I think there's probably a couple of areas that I think from a vision perspective. One is, I want to extend that just walk out technology to the just walk up thinking, just walk up mindset of as soon as a fan walks towards the stadium, whether it's at the shop or at the stadium, we know who they are. We're connecting with them. We're giving them promotions and offers. We're helping them know where to go. We're letting them go and get any bit of food and beverage they want at any point during a game, before a game, after a game, to the point where they almost don't need to get their phone out of their pocket, right? And I think that from that seamless experience and personalized seamless experience, that's something that I really want to try and push to make happen. And then I think, who knows what's going to happen from a broadcast rights point of view and showing live games, but being able to use this to give, almost that deep experience of watching a game when you're 3,000 miles away. I'd love to be able to offer that to a fan on a global basis, or even if it's not watching the game, feeling like they are part of the crowd. If you could give a fan the experience of sitting in the cop when they're singing, that would be electrifying. And how do we do that? How do we take that atmosphere and use the network and the capacity that we've got to be able to package it in a way that people can hook into it?
It's an interesting challenge because it's both. Sometimes the person 3,000 miles away might say they have a better experience than the person in the stadiums because they can immerse themselves in the in the broadcast.
Yeah.
And it's really now about how do you bring the digital broadcast experience into the stadium and bring the stadium experience to the person watching on digital broadcast, right? And
absolutely. Like, so if we get to a point where we've got bigger screens, those bigger screens are giving, offers or engagement, or people can, have themselves pictured on the big screen. Like, why restrict that to people in the stadium when you could do it? And sometimes you're right. People that might watch it at home or in a pub might say, well, they see every part of the game because of the cameras, but they don't get the same atmosphere. So how do you join the two things together? Yeah, easy to talk about, very hard to do. But I think fast forward probably 5 years from now, I think those are the sorts of experiences that you'll naturally get.
Yeah, well, you have your work cut out for you, that's for sure. So just one last question, right? The season is just underway. You're 3-0, I think. Believe tied with Man City. So predictions on the season. How are you guys going to do?
We actually had a session yesterday, and Arna and Richard Hughes spoke. And Arna quite rightly said, I'm not even predicting it. The only thing I'm going to think about is the next game and whether we win on Sunday, I think it is. Genuinely, I think, it's been an amazing start to the season, incredibly well, given we're in a new era and a new transition. I think, we will absolutely punch for top four. And I think, a focus of getting one trophy would be an incredible first season. I also think, from a women's perspective as well, did incredibly well last year. Arguably, got the question posed to Matt Beard was, did you punch above your weight? I mean, they finished fourth, having only been in this sort of WSL for 2 seasons. So again, really, really well. Can they kind of break into the top 3 this season, or at least make sure that they hold firm on fourth? Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility with the squad. So yeah, on both sides, on the men's and women's game, it's going to be a very exciting year. We're all
well, at least now they have a new network on their side, right?
Yeah, exactly. I wish that could help them, score goals, but at least it'll help them with analytics and data and everything else.
Yeah. All right, Drew. Anything else you want to add?
No, all good. That's great. It's good chat.
Yeah, no, I certainly appreciate your time, and so I think that's a great place to wrap up. So on behalf of Drew Crisp from Liverpool Football Club and Zias Caravallo from ZK Research, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. I'll see you next time on the next episode of ZKast. Thanks, Drew.